Hello everyone and welcome to F124 launch day. In today's video I'm going to go over the details that could help you get up to speed and really shortcut your learning process to be up to speed ASAP, and that's going to be including the race starts, wet weather, how to cool the tyres, tyre pressures, how they affect the car, and really like the details I've not seen that many people talking about on the social media so far, and just do my best to help you as well. So the first point that I'm going to get into today is going to be the tyre pressures, as ultimately the tyre pressures seem a little bit reversed at the moment, and the higher you go on the tyre pressure, the lower tyre temperatures you have. So I'm going to do a quick example of this with a one-shot qualifying at Silverstone and yeah, give you a live example. As you can see now, the tyres are up to 97 on the rear left, going into Max and Beckett's, and I still have plenty of tyre temperature window to continue pushing, plenty of grip. Of course, the surface temperature skyrockets through there, as naturally it will do with a high-speed sequence of corners, as would do also in real life, to be honest. But you can see that the core temperature of the tyre is still very manageable, and at the end of a qualifying lap at Silverstone, the front left is at 103, as we go into the final sequence here. Kiss the apex, lovely job here, and 104 degrees on the rear left, 105 as we come across the line. And ultimately now I'm going to put the tyre pressure to minimal and show you a rather extreme example between the two of them. So now, as you can see, loading what will be the same setup, taking the fuel back down to minimal and loading the tyre pressure to absolute minimal as well, 22.5 on the front and 20.5 on the rear as well. So you can see, just need to take that down by one more click on the front, and we are going all the way down to minimal tyre pressure to show you just how extreme the differences can be between just how powerful the tyre pressure is on this game, to be honest. And yeah, you can see, same setup, same ERS mode, and we're going to drive the lap as close as possible in my driving style as well, and loading up the tyre pressure menu. Something that I've also noticed, but I haven't been able to confirm right now, because I haven't done the exact tests on it, and I want to only give, let's say, completely accurate information if I say something as a fact. But also the rolling resistance of the tyre is of course higher the lower PSI you go, so you'll be marginally slower on the straight by running lower tyre PSI. Something that is quite prominent as well is the car is significantly more unstable and unbalanced when you're running lower tyre pressure, as you just saw right there. This is also, let's say, quite realistic though, I have to say. The lower tyre pressure you would go, the more the sidewall will squat and flex and move around, causing slight inconsistencies within the grip level, because of course the sidewall is flexing or not flexing, and effectively the harder or more PSI you go on the tyre, the more that the sidewall will flex, or the less the sidewall will flex if you go higher, of course, and the lower PSI you go, the more the sidewall will flex, causing an inconsistency in the feeling. So yeah, this bit is, let's say, not unrealistic, but as you can see right now, coming to the end of the lap with the minimal tyre pressures, you can see we're actually well behind the AI, and we've got 110 degrees on the rear left tyre. Coming across the start-finish line, comparing to what was 105 degrees with maximum tyre pressure, with the minimal tyre pressure having 111 on the rear left. So a 6-degree difference, and ultimately a very significant difference in lap time.
Goodbye for now then, but we are really just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow.
There we go. I can actually speak now, because I don't like speaking when I can hear other people's voices in my ears. Yeah, you can see we qualified on the pole with the maximum tyre pressure, and we're doing a 27.0 with the minimal tyre pressure. So I'm going to quickly jump back and do another lap on maximum tyre pressure to put myself. So as you can see, we did a lap with the maximum tyre pressure again, just to put ourselves at the front of the grid, and we did a 26.3, what was already 7 tenths faster than using minimal tyre pressure. So you can see it's quite a big difference, and I really advise, if you don't know what you're going to do with the tyre pressure for the race, I would just maximum tyre pressure is my best advice for you, and the same goes for the qualifying. The next subject we're going to be talking about is going to be race starts and how you can get the best race start possible as well. So my best advice for race starts is to be at 11,500 RPM. As soon as the lights go out, drop the throttle to appropriately manage the wheel spin, and then build the throttle back up very gradually. As soon as you get back up into third gear, start deploying the battery, and this will be giving you a slingshot off the start-finish line and how you can maximize your potential here. Going over this a few times, you can see 11,500 in the middle of the screen, lights out, away we go, manage the wheel spin. And you can see we're able to fly off the line in a really consistent way. And the key with this is just to drop the throttle a little bit. So like I say, bring the throttle and bring the revs to 11,500. And then as soon as the lights go out, drop the RPM, drop the throttle to start managing the wheel spin. As soon as you're in third gear, start using the overtake button and accelerate away from your opponents. This is a good baseline to be working from, and I was using 40% differential off the start-finish line here as well. What seems for me to be a very nice balance, and can hopefully be helping you get good race starts straight away on this game as well. Briefly to talk about the tyre wear, because I'm ultimately going to do a tyre wear video in its entirety and show you how to manage tyres fully on this game, as it's one of the most critical elements of this year's mechanics and how you can maximize your potential. But to very briefly show you how a tyre wear can be working in a very simple, very easy to understand terminology, is the less steering angle you can put in, the better your tyre wear is going to be. So you're looking to open up the angle of the apexes as much as possible and just sort of float between the corners. And you can see I'm putting in minimal steering angle into the in-game, and that is how I'm able to get through the corners without adding unnecessary tyre wear, to be honest. And you can see right now, what I'm going to do is a live example, minimal steering angle through this corner, and just taking a really wide width, and you can see not adding unnecessary drama into the steering wheel, going into cockpit camera to really show you a big effect, to be honest. You can see just one input into the corner, and then gradually all the way through, just keeping the steering wheel constant and ultimately able to be in a good way because of it. We're going to quickly check the tyre wear, and the tyre wear is at 3% on the front left. So now I'm going to show you what not to do and what the tyres can be feeling if you're too aggressive on the steering wheel and over scrubbing the tyres. So you can see already in one turn, I got 2% extra tyre wear. Of course, it's a very amplified and over-exaggerated situation, as realistically you won't be doing this much steering anyway, but you can sort of get a grasp of just how powerful being smooth and doing minimal input to your steering wheel can have a big effect on tyre wear. A more realistic example is probably a bit like this, adding 90 degrees in the middle of the corner, being maybe a little bit worried about the understeer of the car. And ultimately, as you can see, going back into cockpit camera, by adding, like you can see, let's say 10 degrees extra steering lock in the middle of the corner compared to what I did on the first attempt, added 1% extra tyre wear on the front axle. So if you was doing this every single corner, every single lap, you're going to have multiple tyre wear factor, what is meaning you can do less laps in your stint. Of course, the more tyre wear you have, the less grip you have as well. So in a qualifying lap is probably okay, you can probably get away with this driving style, but over a racing stint you have to be really smooth and manage the tyres in a really good way. You can see just going through the corner, one smooth input, and instead of coming out on 4 or 5%, coming out the corner with 3% tyre wear. This is going to play out time after time as well, and where you can be really smooth and take the biggest, widest arc of every corner to minimize the tyre wear as well. Something that I'm going to start talking about as well is the ride height of the F1 24 game. It's very low, and on some straights, especially on Silverstone, you're going to start bumping and bottom out going down the straights. And this is where you're going to see a lot of the top drivers taking quite weird lines, to be honest, going down the straight. So if I'm going down the straight here on the racing line, you see the car actually bottoms out, and I'm only doing 185 miles an hour at the end of the straight. To keep it a fair test, I'm only going to start the replay camera when I turn off the battery. So you can see now I turned off the battery here. So now I'm going to restart the video, restart the game, and you can see an exact replication of how fast I can be going by not taking the bumps down the straight. I did 185 miles an hour before, so now you can see by not using any overtake button, we're able to get all the way up to 187 miles an hour before we come parallel with the curb on the right hand side. You can see actually 188 in fact, but at the 150 meter board was doing 187. So at minimum 2 miles an hour gained by simply not going over the bumps on the straight, and this is something that will probably carry over track to track and environment into environment basically, as you have to run the ride height super low on this year's game to get the ground effect working properly in the corners, what is also meaning that the car is more sensitive to the bumps. So going over this example one more time, and you can see at the 150 meter board, when we pause it right here, we are actually doing 182 miles an hour. So by deviating from the racing line and avoiding the bumps down the straight, we have basically saved ourselves or gained 5 miles an hour because of it. So this is something that you need to watch out for at home, and you need to adapt your thinking, adapt your driving for as well, because ultimately, yeah, we can't go down the straight and be losing 5 miles an hour for a very small, or what is really a reason that shouldn't be happening, let's say. But yeah, that's definitely something to watch out for, and that is one really key factor about performance in this year's game. So next up, I'm going to be talking about the rain and how you can use the rain off the racing line to help cool the tyres. So we're also going to go over a wet start example here on Silverstone as well, and how you can get the maximum potential from a wet standing start. So in a wet start, I would recommend going to 11,300 RPM, getting away from the line, managing the wheel spin in the same way, and as soon as you got to 4th gear, then start using your overtake battery to really pull away as fast as possible, and that'll be a good way to get away from the line in a wet start. So like I say, in the dry, about 11,500 is about appropriate, and in the rain, 11,300 will be good as well. So that being said, moving on to what are we talking about with the tyre temperatures and also the tyre, well, wear as a natural result of overheating tyres here in the rain as well. So you can see on the first lap of Silverstone, there was no real dry line, simply because the cars have not driven over to move the water. So basically all the track is as wet as each other, but as now you'll see when we got onto like lap 2, lap 3 even, the track will become more and more, let's say, dry on the racing line, as the 20 cars circulating will have pushed the water away, and the off-racing line will naturally become wetter than the racing line. So now you can see we're in a racing situation with the intermediates here at Silverstone. Quite an easy track to overheat tyres on, quite simply because it's so high speed, and it's tyres that have a lot of friction going through sections like Maggers and Beckett's. Stowe as well coming up next after the sequence of corners. But the point that I'm going to be making is ultimately by driving off the racing line, you can cool your tyres significantly faster than driving on the racing line. This is also, let's say, realistic, as the more standing water, or the more water, let's say, content you have, the better ability to disperse the heat from the surface of the tyre, allowing the tyre to come cool down. So my general advice to you here is, in a racing situation, when you can be off the racing line, I would pretty much always recommend to not be on the racing line to help the tyres cool down as much as possible, because in general, wet tyres are more likely to overheat than they are to be too cold. So by managing them can help you bring better tyre life. As you can see now, the racing line is starting to get a bit drier now that we've done 4 laps of circulating and intermediate conditions here at Silverstone as well. So you can see the tyres are dropping a reasonable temperature window, but as soon as we come off the racing line, they're slightly dropping the surface temperature a little bit faster. And like I say, driving off the racing line will not save you tyre wear going down the straight, but it can mean that your tyre temperatures are slightly better, allowing you to have more grip, meaning that you don't slide the tyre through the surface of the road as easily, and that can allow you to have better tyre wear, to be honest. So it's something that you can utilize your advantage, and like I say, in a racing situation, I would pretty much always recommend, when you can, to be driving off the racing line to help the tyres cool as much as possible. In a qualifying situation, I would recommend it. It's not as vital as tyre wear, and the grip will not be as different, because you can start your lap a bit colder, whereas in a racing situation, your tyre temps build up lap after lap after lap, like they're doing here on Silverstone right now. So ultimately, it's something that you can play around with to your advantage, and how you can try and maximize the performance of the car and maximize the performance of the game as well. So it's definitely, like I say, something to watch out for, something to keep in mind, and it will also apply to the full wet weather tyres as well. The final point I'm going to be making in this kind of like overall quick warm-up, get to speed guide with the F1 24 game is I'm going to reiterate a point that I made in one of my original settings video for this game, that 60 FPS or capped 59 is faster and will gain you significant amount of time and speed on this year's game. Probably even more than F1 23, quite simply because on F1 23 the ride height was not as critical. We were not bottoming out down the straights as often, really. Whereas on this year's game, as I talked about earlier in the video, with the bumps down the straight at Silverstone and where you have to avoid some bumps as well, that combined with the ride height of the car being generally lower to get the ground effect to work better, means that you are touching the floor more and you can run the car ride height lower without the risk of spinning or losing the airflow underneath the car by using 60 FPS. So yeah, I definitely would recommend using 60 FPS or 59 capped if you're on PC. If you're on PlayStation and Xbox, it will already be capped to 59 anyway, so you won't have to worry about it. And to basically quickly explain what's happening within the physics to make this happen, is when you're running the uncapped FPS and you're running above 120 FPS, the physics model is in its full utilization. When you're running underneath 59 or 60 FPS as well, the game is running, let's say, in a more simple mode. This is purely to accommodate for the Xbox and PlayStation's ability to run at FPS. So effectively, this mode is made for the Xbox and the PlayStation, as they are not powerful enough to run like 200 FPS like we are on PC. And yeah, basically what's happening in the physics model is the car is basically touching the floor less, or there's less points of references for the physics model to be updated around the lap. Or the millisecond, in fact. So by effectively running the lower FPS at 59 capped, the car is updating the physics model less and less and less and less. So it's allowing the car not to be bottoming out as often down the straight. Of course, it's a very simple explanation, but I think you can understand and say what I'm getting at with the concept and how you can utilize it for yourself at home as well. So I've been Brendon Leigh. Thank you so much for watching, and if you would like any other guides, be sure to put them in the comments what you would like to see from the F1 24 game. I'm going to follow these videos up with tire wear management guides, how to manage the fuel, how to manage the battery. I've already done one of those videos, but to show it even in more detail, how to trail brake, how to do the weight distribution, blah 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 blah, etc etc etc. So if you want to see anything, be sure to post it down in the comments, and I'll make it my top priority to get that video done for you. And I will catch you in the next video or on one of my live streams. Grazie ragazzi, ciao ciao, bye bye.